What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, with my album of the week for the week of October 24th, 25th through October 31st. This is Elias Ronnenfelt's debut album, Heavy Glory. And Elias Ronnenfelt is the frontman for the Danish post-punk band, I guess that's what they are, Iceage. It's a pretty decent band, pretty good band in their own right. But he's gone solo as this nice little singer, what is essentially a singer-songwriter album, but it's a singer-songwriter album, not with somebody just picking it. All of these songs could have been played, I think, on an acoustic guitar with just him in a microphone. Really, really lyric heavy, fantastic lyrics. A lot of sort of other band reference points that I'm going to point out, not because I think he's like ripping them off, but I think because he's tapping into sort of musical subgenres that remind me of other artists in a really good, positive light. An early track has this sort of really, really, really upbeat, feel-good country vibe that kind of reminds me of very, very early Bright Eyes. We got some Wilco vibes. Sort of, a lot of these are love songs, and there's one track that it's kind of just this detailing of this relationship that's kind of falling apart, and every couple lines or every verse, the music just kind of twists and turns, and at times it reminds me of Wilco's I Am Trying to Break Your Heart. At times it reminds me of Iron and Wine's Walking Far From Home. Is that the name of the track? And I'm walking far from home, the title track to Kiss Yourself Clean. Kind of reminds me of both those tracks. As the album progresses and we get these more kind of straightforward, almost indie rock type singer-songwriter songs, kind of reminds me of The Replacements. There's a little bit of Westerberg in his voice, and he's Danish, and there's definitely this accent that at times sounds like an affectation, but it's obviously his accent, but it almost sounds like a Paul Westerberg putting on this affectation. And Westerberg's from Minneapolis, where we have a lot of sort of Scandinavians, so it's not too far of a stretch to say there's a Westerberg element in this. And at times, towards the end, I think it's the last track, the second to last track, hardcore spiritualized vibes, just a really intense sort of electric guitar, just very full-on attack that reminds me of Spiritualized in the best way possible. So it's a really, really fun, interesting listen with fantastic lyrics. But there's a part of me that wants to call it like a country album. Really, it's the opening track, maybe another couple tracks early on where we have a use of harmonica that have like a country, alt country vibe. But I'm hesitant to call it a country album for a couple reasons. One, everybody's making country albums these days, right? Beyonce dropped one. I think there's a couple other artists that have dropped country albums recently who aren't normally doing country. But I think, and I may be wrong, and if you're like a hardcore country fan, and I'm wrong about this, let me know. But I think country music, I listen to country music, not a lot. If like an album is like, there are certain artists I will check out. If an artist gets like rave reviews, I will check out the album because I like music. But I think country music is a gatekeeping problem. Just in the last 10 years, we had Casey Musgraves when she came up. A couple of her early songs reference like, "Hey, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get high," or "Hey, like if you want, kiss somebody, kiss a guy or a girl, doesn't matter. Be yourself," right? And I know she got some pushback from that just because, hey, we don't do that in Nashville. And the Beyonce brouhaha from earlier this year, which is kind of stupid, ridiculous, right? So there's a gatekeeping problem in country music. I think that's pretty safe to say. A lot of it has to do with race, it seems like. Also has to do with conservative values, which I don't think are necessarily country. And I want to compare this to punk. Because if you ask anybody, hey, The Clash, what kind of band were The Clash? Almost everybody's going to say they're a punk band. The Clash are punk. But how often do The Clash really sound like punk? Like early on, The Clash I think London Calling in particular was like, hey, we're punk, but we have appreciation for all these different type of musical genres and subgenres. And you don't really know what you're going to get when you listen to a Clash song. But the spirit, the energy, that thing that's just kind of driving the whole thing is punk. And I'm going to argue that the thing that's driving this whole album, other than being just kind of this 21st century indie songwriter, singer-songwriter thing, is there's this country vibe in here. At times musically, so it's obvious, but just at times, just there are tales about relationships, and there are tales about woe, and there are tales about people. And the language I think is fascinating because I'm assuming he's a native Danish speaker and English must be his second language. These don't feel like translations. He must be writing in English. But because it's his second language, that's my assumption. I might be wrong. But it feels like it's his second language because some of the phrasing and the way the lines are delivered just, they read awkwardly on the page. I highly recommend that if you check this out, and I do recommend you check this out. That's why I'm making this video. I think the first song alone is worth checking out, even if you don't continue farther. Check out the first song. Fantastic, like lovers do. This great early Bright Eyes country, almost dancing, no repetitive lyrics. Like the whole thing is just this incredible story. These incredible couplets and just turns of phrase, Dylan-esque at times, but it's just absolutely a beast of a song. But the way he phrases a lot of things seems like it's more a result of it being a second language than him being ultimate trying to be too clever or anything. But it's really interesting listening. It's really interesting reading. But yeah, and I actually love his accent. I think his accent, it reminds me of like other singer-songwriters, particularly early Bright Eyes, but I don't think he's trying to do that. I think that's just the way he sounds because he's not a native English speaker. And at times, there are certain songs on here, if you're a Grateful Dead fan, it almost seems like this is like a really emo version of like a Robert Hunter lyrics, you know, just that kind of portrayal of relationships and that kind of portrayal of just people where it's almost allegorical at times. You know, we're not getting too in the weeds on specifics, but when we do, it has this almost allegorical feel to it. But I absolutely love this album. And I am guilty of someone who, if like the opening track is a banger, I will go re-listen to an album a lot because it immediately draws me in. And the opening track might be the best opening track I've heard all year. It is infectious, it's upbeat, it's bouncy, it's catchy as hell, it's rollicking. It is absolutely fantastic. Very country vibe. It's called Like Lovers Do. Second song, Another Round. It's just encouraging you to drink another round. Like, hey man, you're sad and you're lonely and your heart is broken. Why not just get another drink? But the neat thing about it is it opens up with these electronic drum beats, right? Completely different vibe than the first song. But then this harmonica comes in and it gives it just this like really lonely, desert, isolated, broken heart type vibe. A very like psychedelic alt country vibe that is fantastic. Doomsday Child's Play, the third song, has this drunken, mournful, swaying, waltzy vibe with this aching harmonica that comes in. Close, nice alt rock country piano ballad that just kind of avoids all labels as it goes on and just has this really cool, weird, just weird vibe, but it's touching and it's mournful and it's kind of sad and it's kind of low key, but just kind of cool. No One Else, which I think is like the lead off single from this album, which is absolutely fantastic. Just some nice acoustic strumming kind of is the focus early on, but it's got a dark vibe to it. As the song goes on, it kind of reminds me of like if like a darker Blood on the Tracks type song, like this could have fit on there. If you know, make it a little more Dylan-esque, you know, simplify the sound a little bit more. But just some great broken heart lyrics. And the narrator is like describing, the situation as it goes on, about the broken heart, about there's no one else but her, obviously. But as we get to the chorus, I think the last line is the chorus is, there's no one else but you, but I couldn't keep my fingers from touching someone else or from doing some other walking. So like he cheated on her, so it's his fault. So yeah, I feel bad for him, but he did it to himself, which just works. It's just great. There's a lot going on musically and sonically, just like layers of like noise. This is a song that specifically reminds me of I Am Trying to Break Your Heart by Wilco, but all of that stuff is really the core. It's this lyrics, it's the story that's being told, it's this broken heart that's being described, but it's just really highly effective. Stalker, a very late night, playing the piano. I got a lot to say. I'm feeling the blues, gonna spill my heart out. This droning sort of bagpipey instrument kind of enters at some point, and then the drums and guitar kind of slowly come in and give us a little swaying action before they all come out, and we end up again just at the piano by ourselves, pouring our hearts out. Stalker, great title, great song. Worm Grew a Spine, great title for the song that has this really kind of dated drum machine sound that works well, sort of a LCD sound system, but more techno poppy, but that kind of driving vibe. This one has an almost Dylan flow and attack. And I think this is the one where you get these verses of like 4 lines in which the last line rhymes on each one. Reminds me of It's All Right Mom, Only Bleeding in that way. But it just kind of gets weirder and weirder as it goes. And it's sort of a mashup of It's All Right Mom, Only Bleeding and Walking Far From Home, or Walking From Home, that Iron and Wide song. And that each verse just kind of gets a little bit weirder and puts you in a little bit of different musical situation. And it's like we just keep shifting. It's like a Rubik's Cube. We're here, and now we're going to shift. We're here, but only one row is changed type thing. Just really neat. The lyrics are fantastic, but also the music is so intriguing that it keeps you interested, even if you aren't engaged with the lyrics, which I don't know why you wouldn't be. And the two together, it's really an ambitious album. But at the same time, staying kind of true to like a singer-songwriter vibe and letting the focus always be the lyrics. Soldier Song, kind of a early 70s sounding acoustic ballad, dark and serious. It's about a soldier, war, death, that kind of thing. Has that kind of vibe in there. What else do we have? Unarmed. Has this really nice slow kind of arpeggio, like like that kind of plays that sets the tone. Kind of a little bit creepy, kind of builds and gets more frantic as the song goes on. River of Madeline is probably by far the most straightforward, gentle thing on here. Kind of an indie rock ballad, or late something. Late who? Late some. Oh, this is the one that kind of sounds to me of like a late period Replacement song, where it's just like at the core is the singer-songwriter. The music is rockish, but also a little more ballady and a little more accessible and a little more pop. Something that maybe the Mats would have dropped on like Don't Tell a Soul, or that other album, All Shook Down. One of those type of albums, songs on there. Yeah. And then another absolute highlight. And it's funny because it was towards the end of the album where I started to make like a Replacements connection, and then the song Sound of Confusion drops, and the first line in Sound of Confusion is I Walk with Jesus, which immediately made me think of like, I'm riding with Jesus and he wants that song off Please Help Me, please can't explain. I can't. What is it? I can't explain. I can't explain. The song. It's that last song on that awesome Mats album. But immediately that Jesus connection, I was like, oh, maybe this is intentional. Really, really great song. Intense acoustic torture that has this really nice build. This electric guitar comes tearing in. We get this complete spiritualized vibe. And then one of the last lines, after he's just like talking about hanging with Jesus and being with Jesus and having these struggles, one of the last lines is, Jesus, please meet me at the center of the earth. Guys, yeah, he's just giving up. It's going straight down there, people. And then the last song, No Place to Fall, almost doesn't fit. classical sounding acoustic guitar. We got some strings. It almost feels like it doesn't belong on this album, but it's the last song on the album, and it kind of almost has positive love lyrics. So as a closing tune, it actually maybe kind of oddly works. Anywhere else on the album, nope. But as the closing tune, maybe the opening tune, just because it's so different, but I think as the closing tune, it actually kind of works. And yeah, I wasn't sure I had too much to say about this album, but apparently I did. I think this is so absolutely fantastic. Yeah, just for a debut solo album, I think it's ambitious. The writing is fantastic. It's you feel like this artist has a personality, has an identity. Looking forward to see what happens going forward. I do want to give another shout out, if you've made it this far, to Soccer Mommy's new album. Not even sure I know what the name of it is. I've listened to it about Evergreen. Yeah, I did know that. Not my album of the week, only because I love it, and it's probably going to make, it will most definitely, I imagine, make my end of the year top 10 list. This one, right now it's in there, but who knows when all is said and done. Probably this one will. Soccer Mommy definitely will. But I will probably listen to the Soccer Mommy album 5 or 6 times every time I listen to this, just because I love Soccer Mommy. And if you have not checked her out, her album Color Theory, I think is her best. This one reminds me a little more of Clean, the album that preceded Color Theory, than it does the most recent one, the one that followed Color Theory, which just felt a little more different and bigger and like maybe trying to mix things up. This one seems to go back to a little more simpler production, a little simpler presentation, which I think is Sophie's strength. Essentially, Soccer Mommy, there's one artist who's, I think, writes all the lyrics and the music, and she's at the center of the band. Absolutely fantastic. But that's another album I highly recommend. Soccer Mommy's Evergreen, if you have any interest in checking that out, if you've made it this far in the video. But anyways, that's all I got on this. Highly recommend you check that out. Elias Ronnenfelt's new album. It's a really good listen. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time. Peace. Talk to you later.